Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Emmett, and I have a guest today. His name is David Champion. Today, David and I are going to have a conversation. It's not going to be so much of an interview. This is going to be just sharing energy and ideas. And I'm going to do that with Mr. David Champion. How are you, David?
I'm very grateful and appreciative to be on your air. Thank you very much. And could you pass the sugar? Oh, that's right. We're not even in the same room. Okay, I'm sorry.
So David, you and I have had conversation. We've kind of, as I say, chop it up, and it was kind of everywhere. We touched on so many different things when we talked off the air. But one of the things that has permeated our conversation and permeates life in America is the fact that most people don't really understand the concept of love. B, people are not aware. They are not conscious. And I want to, and you can start wherever you like. I want to get your take on these things.
Well, okay, let's start a long time ago. Let's start with the Phoenicians. Long time ago, I don't have to go back that far.
You could have went to the Sumerians. I didn't care.
Very good. Very good, Emmett. That was really good. The thing is, we love to love the people who we love and the people who are like us. But we draw a little line about people who are different, who have more education or less education, who live in one part or another of a city or a nation, and who have one religious or cultural difference. We should be very open and very loving, because we can bomb the hell out of people, but it's not really working. What we need to do is what Dr. King said. We need to love people. We need to accept people. And that's what Gandhi was all about. And that's what Jesus was all about. All the great teachers were talking about not bombing and hating, but forgiving and overcoming with love. And that's what I do. I try to look at love. Love is a profound thing that everybody wants. And if somebody doesn't get it, I've had people call me and they're obsessed with it. Does anybody love me? And I said, well, do you love yourself? Well, no, I can't love myself because, my breast is disfigured, and she's crying. I said, well, go to ourbreasts.com. It's an amazing website to support people who have different breasts. But she's not interested. We hold on to our pain. We hold on to our story. We need to learn how to forgive. And when something happens in a relationship, whether it's something with our children or something with ourselves, we can't forgive. We want to be right. And that right is so crushing. We just don't know how to be gentle to people.
That's true. When, I see it every day. I see it in the media, and I don't watch much of it because I pulled out my cable, built myself a coat hanger antenna, and whatever I get. And all the media that I consume it on purpose for entertainment value versus information value. My information I get from sources that I seek out. And one of the things that came about from that is a shift in consciousness, making me aware of my situation, making me aware of my surroundings. and it makes you aware of the people in your life and seeing the best in them. And that's a hard thing to do. As far as consciousness in our modern society, what is your view on how our society's consciousness has been bred or is deteriorating?
I don't see consciousness. I don't really see that we have if you talk about sex and sexuality in Europe, they teach their kids very much more lovingly about the human body, about sex, about early sex, about what's going to happen. In America and here in Virginia Beach, my two sons took a course, and we had to sign for it in their high school. And what was the course? Basically, it was don't have sex, and if you have to have sex, don't have sex. That's not the lesson. That's not the lesson. That's not the lesson. The lesson is love. Learn to handle your anger. Learn to handle your fear. And if you look at the very beginnings of this country, when and the very beginnings start way before 1607, Jamestown, or 16. Actually forgot what Plymouth Rock is, but it starts with the Spanish and Columbus and enslaving all kinds of people, black people and native populations, and that's sort of overlooked. We have a lot of overlooked blind spots in America, and so I think we need to learn to love and forgive, but we also need to take absolute responsibility for the things we do and the things we've done. And as Americans in our own country, we've dealt not so well with those brought here who didn't have the freedom to go someplace else, and also those people who were here who Europeans suddenly, quote unquote, discovered. And I talked to an ancestor, a direct ancestor of Pocahontas, and he said that the big mistake Indians made was being gracious and loving and supportive and helpful. He said we should have met them, with a fierce resistance, and maybe the Indian tribes would not have been decimated the way they have. We have institutional racism all across the country. This is almost, we don't know how to love. We don't have Jim Crow anymore, but we still have lots of vestiges of it in so many different ways. It's falling, but you see this in so many ways.
But do you know where that manifests from? I can give you my opinion of where it manifests from. My opinion is that it manifests from fear. And
that's exactly it.
And I'll give you how that fear has progressed. And it's actually a very latent thing where, let's say I'm at a schoolyard, first day of school. I've never been to this school. And the first thing I do is I walk up to the biggest kid in the yard and I sock him. So now I've hit this kid, and every day after that I hit this kid. Boom. No one sees it. Teachers don't see it, so no one knows. But the kids see it. Everybody fears me. I have to keep hitting this kid and keep him in fear, because I fear that if I stop, this kid is going to beat the crap out of me and treat me like I treated him. And it's
wow. That's we went on a go keep going.
And this is just me speaking. This is just my own take on it. And because it's been so long, it's embedded in the DNA. It's literally systemic, where even if it'll take generations, it's actually alleviating a little bit. but it's so deeply ingrained in certain things. It's ingrained in commerce, and it's greed, and it's fear, and it's all built into this thing because the utopia will come. It started happening in the 60s. They got it squashed. A consciousness changed in the 80s in the African American community. It got squashed. It also happened in the 70s too. But every time there's a visible consciousness change, the powers that be said, that's not the change we want. We need to keep you in fear because that's our mechanism of control.
Well, I believe in a higher authority. And what is the higher authority? The higher authority, and you alluded to it, is consciousness. I pray every single morning, and I consciously try to be that person so I'm not a hypocrite. Do I get angry? Yes. Do I get stupid? Yeah. But the goal is to not be stupid, not be hurtful, and to move to being more loving and more kind. And I've been married almost, in September, it'll be 47 years. And one of the things I've learned is if I'm right, that means my wife is wrong. And if my wife is wrong, she's not going to appreciate that. So we don't fight the way many people do. And consequently, we're still together. A lot of people want to be right and fight. And so they scream and yell, you bitch, you this, you that, you that. And the trouble is, once you've done that, Emmett, you can't walk that back. Well, I didn't really mean you were this, street walking bitch. But once you've said it, you can't take that back. So we don't do that. We try to focus on what the real issue is, because whatever we say, and this is what I found in the years I've been being involved with what it is I do, that people have no idea what the real issue is. Sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's jealousy, sometimes love moves in a direction and a speed, and they're not used to being loved. And so what's happening to me, I feel out of control, because this thing we call love, if this thing we call love was carpentry, and you and I had taken a course or something in carpentry, and we learned how to make, for example, a simple desk or something, and then somebody said, well, can you make a sophisticated shelf system? Well, maybe we'd go, no. We don't have that understanding. But the assumption of love is that we can do everything. We can be good parents. We can be good neighbors. We can be. But it starts, to me, as a ground, as the foundation of this, with being respectful. So whenever my wife does anything for me, I always say thank you. I always say thank you. And whenever anybody does anything for me, including you putting me on this air, I say thank you. And so that's the beginning of being grateful, thankful.
That's true. And that is a lesson that I had to earnestly learn. Your parents say thank you. They tell you how to respond to people, but you have to really own it when you say thank you to someone, which means you have to have gratitude and appreciation for that individual and the deeds that they gave forth to you. So that's a good point. Gratitude is a good start.
It's, and seeing everybody, when I used to do motivational speaking, the thing that when I would look out into an audience, I wouldn't think these people are better than me, and you don't see them naked. Whoever said that is totally wrong. The training exercise is you see people in their underwear, And the reason you see them in your underwear, if they're naked, that's too intimidating. And if they're in their suits and skirts, dresses, that's intimidating. But if you see people in their underwear scratching their beer bellies, that's not intimidating. And so that's what speakers have that image, that because it's not intimidating. And so, people want you to succeed. They want you to be able to be successful.
That's a good point that you made, because I remember this when I was in Toastmasters. I was in
Toastmasters.
Yeah, and I remember during a speech, someone got kind of tied up. They took pauses that were longer, and then there was another gentleman who used the pauses to his advantage, because he used them to unsettle the audience. Because when you feel they're not comfortable in their skin, or they're not on the mark they need to be, you generate an emotion for them, and it's an uncomfortable feeling. So you're right; they want you to succeed in most circumstances. Some people just don't manifest.
But the interesting thing you just said, I used to do children's storytelling, which is more fun than, I would actually close down elementary schools. And the way you do that, if I was to read you a story, once upon a time there were 3 pigs, that's reading. But if I was to tell it, it would be something like, once upon a time, a long time ago. The voice changes, there are pauses, and there is facial expressions and movement. And that's a storyteller. And I found that to be absolutely amazing, because to see all these kids being astounded by a guy in a green dragon costume was pretty special. Pretty special. But what we're looking for is sort of like wearing a backpack. That's love. We want to have it with us all the time. Do you love me? Do I love you? It's if I do this, will you still love me? It's an obsession of sorts. And people don't understand. This is both a good obsession, that you love me, and a not so good obsession, because the obsession drives the conversation. So if I say I'm in favor of Planned Parenthood and you say you're not, then do you still love me? And a lot of times the answer is no. The answer is no, especially now. We have a very sharp understanding of what is love. We should be very, very concerned about all of the children seeing all of these adult activities and how they respond. I have 2 sons. I was always very conscious that everything I do, my sons are watching me. And if I'm a deliberate parent, a conscious parent, they will be conscious, aware, considerate adults. And so I never demeaned my wife then or now, especially when they were around. When my wife said something, it was, she made the decision. Or when I made the decision, she did not demean me. We didn't have this war back and forth. And so the children learned the value of respect. Because I actually like my wife.
Hey, let me ask you a question. You have a few months on me as far as time on Earth. And, one thing that I realized not too long ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, is that many of us, particularly in this society, we move too fast, which is particularly when it comes to growing up. I told you I'm from Detroit, Michigan. So, and I realize this, that when you're from a major metropolitan city, an urban environment, you have to mature faster because the environment requires you to learn much more to navigate it. In that, and this is kind of an offshoot of that, which is when couples are getting together, first of all, they're getting together because they're getting together because they need to fill a void that they don't know what it is. And they think this other person is going to do it. Then to compound that, the relationship usually within about 18 to 24 months is going to start waning because those chemicals start to wear off that they initially had. Now they have another void, so then they start having children to fill another void, but they haven't cemented the foundation to have those children. And that's what I'm seeing today. But how do we change that? How do we move back to the area where the community raises the community?
Well, I'll answer part A of the question, and then by the time I answer part A, you won't remember the rest of the question, so I'll be in great shape. Oh, damn, no, I can just remember part A. My wife and I were married in 1970, and we waited until 1979 to have a child. I couldn't abide by a divorce. That just was not in my vocabulary. I just couldn't do it. So we had to know each other pretty well. And it's not what people do for a living. It's the caliber of their character. Do I make quote unquote mistakes? Holy smokes, yes. Holy smokes, yes. Being a psychic is, I'm a speaker, I'm a psychic, I'm a lot of different things. And it's been very, very trying. But my wife knows I come to every situation very innocent. I'm not, I'm very innocent. And what I mean by that is I'm not out to hurt people. I'm not out to take advantage of people. And I do perceive things in a totally different way. And so to answer your question, this is a big challenge. This is a big challenge. And you've used the word several times, and that is the answer. The ideal thing would be to have people grow up, stay, and love in a certain geographic area, so they would have the emotional, spiritual, financial stability, and that would be good. But that's not the world. But more than that, they need to be able to make good, stable decisions and choose love, and also not non-threat. And that is being aware, being sensitive. And we can feel each other. And you also said this, it's about energy. It is about energy. Love is energy, sex is energy, relationship is energy, everything is energy. And when we are aware that even threat, fear is energy, and we're wasting a tremendous amount of time, money, energy trying to hurt people who are different. I pray for my enemies. I really do. And I have consistently done that. And I believe the only way to change people is basically to send them love. I told my son the other day, one of my boys the other day, that I believe in unconditional love and I believe in unconditional forgiveness. He said, "Dad, but somebody will take advantage of you." I said, "Yes, they probably will, but you can't believe in anything other than love. Love is health." And see, one of the things I see, Emmett, so many people are sick. And why are they sick? Because they believe in one craziness or another. My mother died in 1985. I wasn't really able to see things the way I am now, but I told my wife, my mother was dying of cancer. And she said, your mother is not dying of cancer. We just got a letter. Another case, we just saw her a little while ago. So she's not dying of cancer. Emmett, 2 years later, she died of cancer. Come to find out, my mother had a lump in one of her breasts and would not deal with it. And so she died. We have to begin to understand that the hardest thing in the world is not getting a woman pregnant, although sometimes that can be a challenge. The hardest part is accepting someone where they are, and being gentle and loving. Before I arrived here, and before I was a motivational speaker and had my own radio show at one point, I worked in a funeral home. And people, would say the stupidest things. Well, there's nothing we could do. Well, if you don't try, you're right. There is nothing you can do. But people are afraid to deal with aging. They're afraid to deal with death. And they're afraid to deal with sex. Although sex is everywhere, people don't know the difference between real emotional intimacy and intimacy, sexual intimacy. And so it's all just like a big scrambled egg. It's a mess. And the other thing is, we all think we deserve something, whatever that is, but we don't know what that is. We deserve to be able to speak our own truth, even if that truth is different than everybody else's.
Do you think that's an American thing?
Yes, go ahead.
Do you think that's an American thing?
American thing. Yes, I think around the world, everybody has their own understanding. But here in America, we like to make the distinction that we see things much differently. And we, unfortunately, it's fortunate and unfortunate. When I was a kid and growing up in Greater Boston, it's all about the revolution. And I didn't understand back then not only the principal characters, but all the other principal characters who weren't written about. So it's, we're talking about freedom, but back then there was not a whole lot of freedom. You're talking about a very narrow definition of freedom for a very narrow group of people. And I've come to, want a larger mission for America, and also a reconciliation with America's past, so that we can stop these culture and race wars. I shouldn't say race wars, but I don't know what else to call it. I'm old enough, Emma, to have walked in civil rights marches, and 3 of them in the New England area. They're not like Montgomery or some of these other places, but they were very frightening, because on one hand you have all this loving energy, and on the outside of where we were walking, these people are taunting us, and you suddenly realize these people are going to hurt and or kill you. And when the marches broke up, there was not a cop in sight. Not a cop in sight.
There is a good book, and it's a very long book, so I suggest that people get it on audiobook because it's easier to digest, which is The People's History of the United States. So versus your textbook, which dictates the narrative from the winner's side or those who control the media side. This was told from the opposite side of that view, concerning workers, concerning slavery, concerning indigenous people to the Americas, concerning women, which I recently discovered that a lot of women don't even understand or know about women's suffrage. And it just blows my mind to the fact that with so much information available in our generation, many people are still ignorant of so many things. But let me ask you this thing, because usually the podcast goes to about 30 minutes because of the attention span. I'm going to say one word, and I'm going to ask you to just speak.
My attention span or their attention span?
Their attention span. The word is hope. Simply that. How do we generate the hope? Because Barack Obama said hope and change. We didn't see it happen. It was business as usual. And that's just my opinion. Don't hate me. Don't whatever for me. But hope is a beautiful, it's like the morning.
Well, if you're out there listening to Emmett's podcast, I'd like to offer you this my concept of hope. I have one wife, and my one wife and I would drive to the edge of Virginia Beach in the absolute darkness, and we'd stand there freezing in the darkness, holding each other's hand and just shivering, or we'd hold each other and just shivering. And then, Emmett, there'd be a slight, just a little teeny bit of light, and then a little teeny bit of light, and then a little more, and just a little teeny bit of light, and then a little more, and a little more, and a little more. And by the time the sun came up, you knew there was going to be absolute renewal. It is absolutely the most profoundly spiritual experience that I've ever had. And if everyone should have that experience, they would know that two things. First of all, that's hope. Another day, another chance, another opportunity. But more than that all of the doctrines which separate us and we must believe in, this thing's going to go on. This day is going to start, whatever you believe in, whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God. And making somebody wrong because you believe in the truth isn't going to have any one way or the other. In your circle or anything else, it's not going to make any difference. And so if you're asking me what is hope, that's hope to me. But if you're asking in a wider sense, what is hope? Well, hope is this. I'll give you a real life example. I went to a Burger King in Hampton, Virginia, and I was not paying attention. I was just sitting down, conscious about only my own situation. And I noticed over in the corner a man who needs food. He's starving. How he stayed in there when he was so hungry, it's amazing to me. So I walked over and I said, I've got a couple of extra things, and I want to give. He said, I don't want your help. I don't want your help. And he yelled at me. No one did anything. So I sat down after I'd been chastened, and I felt like, okay, the guy wants to be left alone. Leave him alone. So I'm watching, and somebody else walks over and says, hey, buddy, here's a couple of bucks. Go buy yourself something to eat. You're here. He said, look, I don't want any help. What's wrong with you? I don't want any help. So then I learned what the message of this was. And so when I'm checking out, when I'm leaving the restaurant, I said to the man, I spoke to the manager, and I said, look, in a minute, I want you to walk around with this giant tray of food that I just ordered and say, hey, who ordered this food? Did they leave, or are they in the restroom? Where are they? And I'm going to have to throw all this food out. And then I want you to stop at this guy, right in front of this guy, and say, hey, look, I've got all this food. Could you do me a favor? Because I'm going to have to throw this stuff out. And I was on the outside of the building, and I just sort of slowly drove by, And I watched as this guy, who was so angry to me and so angry to this other guy, and he nodded his head and he said, he nodded, and the manager gave him the food. And what that means to me is everybody wants to be helped, but we have to be wise enough, gentle enough, and smart enough so that they won't feel offended. Being of great service takes great wisdom, and it's not about winning. And we've had that paradigm for a long time. We're going to win. We're going to conquer. We're going to overcome. Well, I think a quieter, more gentle, more loving thing. And that starts with our families, and it starts with the people we deal with, and it starts with not holding back. I mean, you have something to say of genuine message to be of support. One of the things that has bothered me for many years because of my specific background, Emmett, is you take the average child, they're getting criticized before they go to school, then they get teased and criticized on the bus, then they get teased and criticized by everybody from the security people to the bus people and that is not even the start of the day. Hundreds of these criticism. Oh, don't you? It's like an avalanche of negativity. But where is the avalanche of support? There isn't one way to look at anything. And we need to recognize there is God in everyone, great divinity in everyone. And if you want someone to love you, whether we're talking about you, Emmett, or your wonderful listeners, get a dog. Get a dog. Now, a cat can love you, but then again, maybe they won't.
They won't.
Maybe. But a dog will love you.
A dog will.
A dog will love you. But a cat will Emmett, I don't think I'm going to love you today. So you're on your own, Emmett. But a dog will.
Hey, we're going to have to exit now. If you guys want to get more contact with David Champion, you can simply go to davidchampion.com, and it's spelled like it sounds. It's David and Champion. David, the guy who threw the rock. Champion like Muhammad Ali. Go visit him.
And for your listeners, I will give 30 minutes for $45. Ordinarily, I charge $2.25 a minute. 30 minutes, $45. If you mention Emmett's name and say, Emmett's the greatest guy in the world.
That's true. And for those of you who don't know, David will, how do I want to say this? He will convene with you and share information with you. And
I do a lot of mentoring. I give people the truth, and I validate them, and I give them great clarity. I don't play games. I don't have patience for people who are liars. I don't do well with that.
And this is how I end the show. Ladies and gentlemen, here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow, sometime when you wake up, you may not want to, but you're going to get out of bed and you'll probably say, I'm a little stinky, so I have to get in the shower. When you get in the shower, wash really well. Feel that moment, feel that heat on your skin, and then you're going to get out, you're going to wipe the mist off the mirror, and you're going to look into a pair of eyes. That pair of eyes is a really special pair of eyes. There's not another single pair of eyes like that. It is so special. Here's the job that I need for you to do with those eyes. Peer into them and peer into the surrounding and support structure for that. I want you to notice those wrinkles, notice the gray, notice the lack of hair, notice the really thick hair, whatever is there. I want you to notice it and take it in because it's really special. It is the 1,000,000 to 1. You are the billionaire lifestyle. You are loved. You just might not know it. You may have a fan that's just sitting there, I wish I could get to know this person. So if you love yourself, love will come to you. So love thyself, know thyself first. And with that, thank you so much, David.
Emmett, thank you for this amazing opportunity. I really appreciate it. You're a great interviewer, and this has been one of my better shows. I mean, you did a great job.
Thank you so much.
Everyone who hears this show, please give him a round of applause.
Thank you. And with that, the Billionaire Lifestyle says adieu, which means bye-bye. Have an awesome day, people.